Well, good morning, YouTube. It is August the 11th of 2020. It's about 6:30 in the morning, and today I think is finally the day that framing is going to start on construction, or reconstruction, I should say, of my barn. As you can see behind me, the slab has been poured. If you watched the previous video, you got a chance to see that, but I haven't recorded anything since then. The crew is not here yet, so I wanted to take this opportunity to give you a little look at how I have things pre-staged so that we can make the most of the time while they're here. We'll take a brief look around, starting over here to the south of the slab. This is my roofing material, and it is amazing how small a pile there is. Believe it or not, there are 24 sheets of roofing material there, plus the ridge cap that you see on top. The roofing material is only 28 or 29 thousandths of an inch thick, so it's pretty thin material, but I'm told that in fact I know that it holds up pretty well because I put the same thing on my chicken house, golly, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and it still looks like new except for being a little bit dirty. Now, turning around, you can see there's the slab, and the material that you see closest here are the bottom plates. These are 2x6 by 16 treated lumber. It's good to put treated lumber as the bottom plate on all the walls, because if there is any water that gets up against the bottom plate, the treated material will help resist rot and also resist any insect penetration. The rest of the walls will be framed out of lumber that was cut, logged by me and cut by a friend that has a sawmill close by, and some of it is stacked up back here. This pile is all 8-foot length material. As you can see, I have some tin on top of it. It hasn't rained here in the last couple of days, but the tin helps to keep the lumber from getting wet. This particular lumber was logged right here on our farm and cut at the local sawmill. It is part green lumber and part standing dead. Now, by standing dead, I mean that the tree had died or was dying. It's all pine, by the way, southern yellow pine, and it had lost all of its greenery off the top and was dead and not going to recover. However, because it had died fairly recently, within the last year or so, the lumber is still quite good, and in fact is much drier than the lumber that was made from the standing green timber. And of course, the drier the lumber is, the better it is for use. This is an 8-foot by probably 4-foot stack and maybe 3 feet high, and it is all 8-foot length material, mostly 2x4s, but with some 8-foot 2x6s mixed in. Now, if we take a walk through here, this is the 16-foot long pile. This is almost all 16-foot 2x4s. This material is primarily going to be used for the stripping, or what some people call the purlins, on top of the rafters in the barn. It is the wood that the roofing material will actually be screwed down to. Walking over here, we see another stack of material. This was not made from logs that were harvested on the property. These are my trusses. They were made down in Alabama, in close to Hamilton, Alabama. There are 17 trusses there. 15 of them are standard trusses. You can see the zigzag pattern between what's called the top cord, which is resting on the ground, and the bottom cord, which is pointed at the sky. The zigzag, of course, is the triangle-shaped material that gives the trusses the maximum amount of strength possible. The other two trusses, we'll walk around to that side, are called the end trusses or the gable trusses. You can see there are two of those, one for each gable end of the house, and they have wall studs, or what would be considered studs, and they are not, of course, as strong as the standard trusses, but they are much better for nailing siding too. The studs there are on 16-inch centers, so we will be able to attach the sheathing directly to those vertical 2x4s. It's a beautiful morning here. The sun has not come up over the trees. This area will be shady until about probably 8 o'clock. I hope the framing crew gets here in time to enjoy some of the shade, because once the sun gets up over the top of that pine tree there, it'll get hot in a hurry. Right now it's probably mid-70s, and the high today is expected to be in the upper 80s, and by the afternoon all the way into the low 90s. The weather forecast is for a 40 to 50% chance of rain starting in the afternoon, and my wife, who is an avid gardener and plant lover, is hoping for rain this afternoon. And honestly, it probably doesn't matter, because if it doesn't rain, I suspect the crew will have given up because of the heat by the time the afternoon comes. The slab turned out pretty well. I've watched it. It has been, I don't know, a couple of months, I suppose, since it was poured, long enough for some grass to grow up around the edges, as you can see. And you can also see some tracks on the slab where I have driven the tractor up here delivering material in order to have as much stuff pre-staged as possible. You might notice that I didn't mention anything about the wall studs. I didn't say where they were. Well, as a matter of fact, they're not here. They were cut first and are down in the garage at the house in a stickered stack drying. I'll take you down there and give you a look at those. This is the stack of lumber that I was speaking of that's going to be used for the studs on the wall and for some other purposes. As you can see, it's mostly 2x6s. There is some other material scattered in with it, but it contains at least 132 pieces of 2x6x16. The walls are only going to be 14 feet high, but I didn't exactly know that when I had the lumber cut, so the lumber is all cut 2 feet longer than it needs to be. It's a rough cut, of course, and has to be trimmed anyway, so it'll be cut down to I believe 13 feet 7.5 inches in order to produce a 14-foot tall wall. The offcuts will be used as blocking between the studs in order to eliminate any possibility of bowing from side to side. There is some other material on the top. You can see some rolls of sheathing. You can see some 4x4s. You can see some 2x4s mixed in, but for the most part, it's 2x6s, having had about 2.5 months to dry. So it should certainly be good enough to use for framing in my barn. So that's about it for now. As you can see, the sun is coming up. Man, is it coming up, and it'll be hot here before you know it. The crew loaded the lumber from the garage onto my 20-foot trailer for the short ride up the hill to the barn site. Because of the height and weight of the walls, they built each wall in 2 sections that were started on the floor and then raised each section into position, braced it, and then completed it by using stick construction. On the south side of the barn, the ground was so dry and hard, they had to use rebar pins to secure the bracing. Each section was first fastened to the floor with ramset nails and then further secured with expanding anchor fasteners.
Sorry, I didn't know you were leaning on that.
Corner posts were built on site using two 2x6s and two 2x4s in a box configuration. They then tipped the box up between the bottom and top plates and nailed it in securely. It's mid-morning on Friday, the 14th of August, 2020, and I thought to give you an update where we are. First place we are is without a crew today. The weather has been so hot and going to be hot again today and hopefully a little cooler next week that we jointly decided that we'd take a day off today. There is supposed to be some rain later on, and that's yet another reason why we decided today might be a good day to take a break. The three walls are framed. I guess they are complete with the exception of the top plate. That's top plate number 2. If you're familiar with wall construction, you know that there's a bottom plate and then there's usually a double top plate. We have the single top plate on the wall, but we have to go back and add the second top plate, or the top plate, I suppose, in order to call these three walls complete. Taking a quick look around, we have an entry door at the front of the barn, and there's the first window. I'm putting 4 windows in this portion of the barn. Small windows, 24 by 36, one there, one here. Another entry door to enter from the back of the barn, and then another door which will provide access to the lower level portion of the barn, which again, as of yet, has not been, the purpose of which has not yet been fully identified. Looking across the rest of the east wall of the barn, you can see that it is complete. All that's lacking, as far as I know, is blocking between the studs. So that's kind of where we are. That'll do it for this video. I will absolutely shoot some video of setting the trusses. That'll be in part 2 of the series about a replacement for my old barn. You probably recall it was crushed by a couple of pine trees during a windstorm back in January. I'll put a link up to that video. Thanks for watching. Be sure to click the thumbs up symbol, make a comment, or ask a question, and share the video on whatever social media you use. And of course, I want you to subscribe if you haven't already done so. All that helps me to grow my channel and encourages me to make more videos. Let's see. It seems like I'm leaving something out, but what is it? Oh yeah, don't forget, I'm not Chuck.